After tearing up the divorce papers and thinking they were free, now they find themselves trying to piece them back together.
I got divorced, but shortly after I regretted it. When I tried to go back and find him, it was already too late. My ex-husband didn't agree to reconcile. Actually, I dare to say that over 90% of women who get divorced end up regretting it. I thought that by being with someone else I would be happy, and that's why I chose divorce. But when I saw the video my daughter sent me, with her hair messy and dirty, looking like a little beggar, I regretted it. I finally understood that, after divorce, the ones who really get hurt are the children. I was trying to find someone better, so I chose a man 10 years older than me. But he didn't give me money. Instead, he asked me for money. Sometimes when we fought, he would call me second-hand goods. It hurt a lot, it was really painful. If I hadn't gotten divorced, at least my daughter would still have a complete family. This is the real story of one of my followers. Would you support them getting back together? I'm a mom, and I believe that marriage requires effort. Someone who doesn't know how to swim will drown, no matter how many different pools they try. I got divorced, but not long after the divorce, I regretted it. Now it's too late to say anything. My ex-husband does not agree to remarry me. My personal experience shows that women should not get divorced easily. Over 90% of women regret it after divorce. After the divorce, I wanted to improve my life. But women in marriage should not be overly dominant. I was too dominant, disliking everything my ex-husband did, always thinking he was wrong, wanting to change him to what I wanted, feeling like I had married the wrong person. I never considered that maybe the fault was mine. I thought that if I changed partners I would be happier, so I chose to get divorced. But after seeing the video my daughter sent me, with her disheveled appearance, I regretted it. I finally understood that, after divorce, the ones who suffer the most are the children themselves. So I wanted to remarry, to give my child a complete family. But my ex-husband does not agree. After the divorce, I just wanted to find someone to be happy with. So I chose a man who is 5 years older than me. But he, instead of earning money, keeps asking me for money. When I don't give him any, he becomes aggressive. It's true what they say, that a woman whose first marriage is bad won't have a good second marriage. If you always think that changing partners will bring happiness, if you place all your hopes on someone else, do you really think you will be happy? And things will only get worse over time. So I regret it. If I hadn't divorced, at least my child would still have a complete family. At least my ex-husband would be more dedicated to the child. Now I realize that the problem was with me. In the marriage, I was too self-centered. I shouldn't have been so dominant. Being dominant only led me to make irreversible mistakes. After the divorce, I regretted it. But it was too late. My ex-husband refused to reconcile. My personal experience tells me that women should never divorce impulsively. More than 98% of women regret it afterward. I was too domineering in the marriage. I felt like I had married the wrong person. Everything my husband did annoyed me. I thought he was always wrong, and I just wanted to change him, never considering my own problems. I thought that, by changing to someone else I would be happy. Oh, I chose to get divorced. But after I saw the video my son sent me, I really regretted it. And I finally realized that, after the divorce, the ones who suffer the most are the children. That's why I wanted to reconcile, to give my child a complete family. But my ex-husband refused. He knows I regret it. I just wanted to find a man who would make me happy. So I chose someone who was 5 years older than me. But not only did he not give me money, he asked me for money. If I don't give it, he gets violent. It's true what they say. A woman who doesn't make the first marriage work won't make the second one work either. If you think that, by changing people you will be happy, you will not find someone better than your first husband, and you will end up finding someone worse. So I regret it. If I hadn't divorced, at least my child would have a complete family. My ex-husband was always dedicated to our child. Now I know where I went wrong. I shouldn't have been so domineering. I really shouldn't have acted like that. My friend told me that she regretted her divorce a lot. But it was all too late. Her ex-husband does not agree to reconcile. And her experience 5 years after the divorce showed me that it's best for women not to divorce easily. More than 95% of women regret it after divorce. Women should not be too domineering in marriage. My friend became that way because she was overly dominant, always thinking that everything her husband did was wrong. So she saw faults in everything he did, and was fixated on changing him, never realizing her own mistakes, believing that just changing partners would make her happy. So she chose divorce. Every time she sees the messages her son sends her, she regrets it intensely, more and more each time. After 5 years, she understood that the ones who suffer the most from divorce are the children. Now she knows she was wrong, but it's already too late. Many women, after getting divorced, want to remarry. What did they experience out there? Maybe, at first, women think they are freeing themselves when they get divorced, feeling like being single again is wonderful. They no longer have to take care of the kids, cook meals, or clean the house. Quickly, they call a few divorced friends, put on beautiful makeup, and head to bars to party, celebrating their return to single life. At that moment, they feel relieved, even regretting not getting divorced earlier. However, after a while, this kind of life starts to feel dull. They begin to think about finding a job, but they discover that getting a job is not easy, and they don't have many skills. They end up taking regular 9-to-5 jobs, earning $3,000 or $4,000 a month. At this point, they realize that making money is not easy. Until then, they had lived off the money their ex-husband brought home, completely forgetting how hard it is to earn money out there. And they even complained that he didn't make enough. After working for some time, they start to miss having an intimate partner and try various ways to find a new one, whether through blind dates or dating apps. However, after several relationships, they realize that none of these men are better than their ex-husband. They are calculating, with hidden motives and full of tricks. After going around in circles, they compare and realize that the ex-husband was, in fact, much better. That's when they start regretting the divorce. They think that back then they must have been out of their minds to insist on the divorce. Out there they can't make money, and the men they meet aren't reliable. After being harshly beaten down by reality, they see that their ex-husband is doing well now, so they want to reconcile. They justify it by saying it's for the children, to give them a complete family, or that they still love their ex-husband. But if it was really for the children, they wouldn't have chosen to divorce in the first place, ignoring the ex-husband's pleas not to separate. Now they want to go back, but do they think men are at their beck and call? During their time apart, they've been with different men, and now, after having their fun, they want to return. Do they think men are fools? Even if this man stays single for life, he won't want to go back to someone who left him. The most foolish women are those who, in marriage, look at men outside and think they're perfect, considerate, gentle, handsome, and rich. Meanwhile, they treat their own husbands with contempt, yelling at them, looking down on them, unable to appreciate their efforts, and never being grateful. A man fights in the world. He can endure hardship, he can suffer, he can be wronged. But what he fears most is the lack of understanding from the woman by his side. Why do men work so hard to make money? Isn't it so you can live a good life, so the family can thrive? Yet, some women insist on ruining that peaceful life. Therefore, unless it's absolutely necessary, women should never divorce lightly. Divorce is easy. Going back is much harder. Would you consider remarrying after a divorce? Why is it said that after a woman abandons a man, the probability of her regretting it is so high? First of all, you need to understand that if a woman can easily abandon a man, it shows that in that relationship, the woman has the upper hand. Comparatively, the man might seem more submissive, with a lower stance, and men like that tend to give in to the woman and put in more effort. The result: this makes the woman feel powerful, secure, and even superior, to the point where she can manipulate the man. In such a situation, can a man still have control over the relationship? What does a submissive man provide to a woman with a dominant posture? He treats her well, spends money on her, takes care of her, and meets her needs. Many women like this, but what's the problem? Over time, the woman gets used to being treated well and slowly starts to think you're not interesting anymore. She gets used to this mundane life, this system of receiving benefits without having to give anything in return, and it stops stimulating her. She loses interest in you. And what's ironic? After she loses that man, she suddenly starts feeling more affection for him. Do you believe it? So, if a man is too good to a woman, she won't appreciate it. But after being abandoned, if you don't chase after her, turn your back and leave, reclaiming all the good you've done and cutting off contact, I assure you that most women will regret it. She'll feel uneasy, very uneasy, and with that discomfort, she'll start remembering how good you were to her. That's a woman's nature. When you treat her well, she doesn't care, thinking she deserves a better man. But when you don't cling to her and leave in a dignified and clean way, she'll start thinking, where am I going to find another man who treated me so well? So, to the men who've been left, don't be anxious. What you need to do is regain your confidence because you're not lacking in anything. And deep down, the woman doesn't want to fully let you go either. Of course, all of this only applies if you don't chase after her and don't let her stay on that high pedestal. In the northeast of China, a woman regretted getting a divorce, because just a few years after the divorce, she found out that her ex-husband had become a successful businessman. The story goes like this. One day, the woman took a taxi, sitting in the front passenger seat. At the time, there weren't many cars on the road, when suddenly, a blue sports car overtook them at high speed. The taxi driver quickly slowed down to avoid it, muttering, "That's a luxury car, better stay away. If anything happens, a scratch or a bump, we couldn't afford to pay for it." Although the woman didn't know much about cars, she was aware that people who drove such luxury cars were usually successful in their careers. Soon they reached a traffic light, and she saw the same sports car waiting at the light. Out of curiosity, she rolled down her window and saw a figure that was all too familiar. It turned out that the man in the sports car was none other than her ex-husband. The ex-husband also noticed her looking his way, so he rolled down his window as well, and warmly greeted her. However, the woman's heart was in turmoil, flooded with mixed emotions, and sadness suddenly overwhelmed her. As she watched her ex-husband's car gradually disappear from sight, she could no longer hold back the tears that began to fall uncontrollably. 0.3s. The taxi driver was baffled, completely unaware of why the woman had such a strong reaction. The woman simply said, in a soft voice, that the scene had stirred up old emotions, but it was nothing important. The driver, though he didn't ask further, had a pretty good idea of what had happened. The man in the sports car must have been someone she knew. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so emotional. It turned out, the woman and her ex-husband had once been a deeply loving couple. The ex-husband had taken great care of her, even doing household chores voluntarily, without a single complaint. He was a man full of drive, always willing to take risks and fight for his dreams. But unfortunately, his business never took off. The woman had been married to him for many years, always living through hard times with him, day after day, year after year, and she began to feel that this hopeless life had no end in sight. Eventually, she became disheartened and asked for a divorce. Her ex-husband tried hard to make her stay, pleading with her to hold on a bit longer, believing that things would surely get better in the future. But the woman had made up her mind, insisting that this wasn't the life she wanted, and said there's a kind of love that means letting go. Knowing he couldn't guarantee the life she dreamed of, he reluctantly agreed to the divorce. After the divorce, they both focused on their careers, and since they had no children, after completing the necessary paperwork, they lost contact. Who would have thought that they would meet again in such a striking way? But many times, once something is missed, it's missed for good. What isn't yours will never truly belong to you. Is it true that many women regret asking for a divorce? I think the probability might be a bit exaggerated, but the reality is not far from it. Why do I say that? Let's take a look. You see, men and women approach marriage differently. Most women who ask for a divorce often have a childlike mindset. It doesn't necessarily mean they truly want a divorce. They haven't considered what life will be like after the divorce. What will happen to the kids? What about both sets of parents? How will others perceive her? She hasn't thought about all these things. She doesn't think deeply and just asks for a divorce. Does she really want a divorce? Actually, no. She's just using the idea of divorce to push her partner, either to get him to compromise or to achieve certain things she desires. This is entirely possible. So, when some women constantly bring up divorce to their husbands, they're really just trying to get them to fulfill certain promises or show more love. It's an unmet emotional need, but the way they express it is flawed. Especially if this type of woman is married to a more mature man. He might feel that she's demanding too much and not serious enough about the marriage. Men like that don't like women who keep threatening with divorce. They can develop resentment. When the man, who used to give in and treat her well, agrees to the divorce, how does she handle it? Many women in this situation end up feeling stuck. They don't want to lose face, so even though they don't really want the divorce, they follow through to maintain their dignity. After the divorce happens, these women face all the problems we mentioned earlier. What to do with the kids, the parents' financial issues, the house, the car, and so on. That's when they begin to realize the reality. A lot of women, who used to cause problems and be demanding in the marriage, did so because they had their husbands to support them. Once they lose that security and have to live independently, they find that life is not so easy, and then the regret sets in. That's why, when my father talks about women who cause a lot of trouble, he always says they regret getting divorced. The regret rate is quite high. There's also another type of woman who wants a divorce because the man is not good. But divorce requires certain conditions. It's not just a matter of saying it. You need to have capital for divorce. What does that mean? If you were a housewife taking care of the kids and household chores, and suddenly get divorced from a husband who, despite his flaws, supported the family, how will you live after that? You have to understand that, as a housewife with no income, he felt free to do wrong things because he knew you were dependent on him. Many women regret it because, although they had issues in the marriage, they lived relatively well with the money provided by the husband. After divorce, your standard of living can drop drastically. It's not easy to go from spending a lot every month to suddenly living on a small budget. So, divorce requires planning and conditions. If you get divorced without being prepared, you will likely regret it.
It's almost ironic how these women who regret their divorces now view their ex-husbands as examples of success and stability. It seems that, in trying to escape the life they knew, they ended up realizing too late that their time had passed. It's as if they had no access to social media, where it's easy to find testimonials from older women desperate for a relationship, while those who are in a relationship are willing to pay to see if it's really that difficult. Reflecting on these stories, we cannot ignore the weight of impulsive decisions. Often, the desire to find freedom can lead to an unexpected path of regret and reflection. These women discovered too late that what they were seeking was not in the separation, but in the time that had already passed. The process of reconciling with the past and seeking a fresh start is challenging, but it is crucial to remember that true change begins with understanding and accepting what we have already lived through. If you're thinking about changing your life, make sure it's the right step and not just an attempt to escape what's already happened. True power lies in learning from the past and building a future that values every moment. Did you enjoy the video? Then don't forget to like and share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to know what you think about these stories, and if you've experienced something similar. Your participation is crucial to us and helps create a more engaged and reflective community. See you in the next video.